地獄で俺と踊ろうぜなあお父さん
So the answer to whether or not Dabi was actually Toya Todoroki has finally been revealed, but that's not all there is to the mystery surrounding Toya Todoroki, because we actually only got a small glimpse at the backstory of what actually happened to the Todoroki family and how things got here. So in this video, thanks to you guys hitting the like goal on the last video, we're going to be going over the full backstory of Dabi or Toya Todoroki to try to pinpoint the exact moment where he became the villain that we know as Dabi. Where did everything go wrong, and how did Toya end up on top of that mountain burning down in front of Endeavor? Let's talk about it. But first off, what were we shown in My Hero Academia Season 6, Episode 11? In the episode after Dabi's revelation, we learn a bit about Toya's backstory, where we see a young Toya Todoroki being questioned by Endeavor, wondering why his hair is starting to change color, because he does have a new white patch of hair on his head, which was before all red. And this is something that is going to be very important moving forward, and a big question that I know a lot of people had, right? Because a lot of people have questioned, hey, in the picture of Toya that we see from Season 5, we see him with all white hair, but here in this flashback, we've seen him with red hair, and that also kind of is thrown into question when you look back to earlier seasons when he was shown originally, and even there, the way his hair color is depicted is a little different. So what is the deal with Toya Todoroki's hair? Endeavor says himself that his firepower was even better than Endeavor's, meaning he was a natural prodigy at conjuring flames from his body and controlling them. However, on the day where Endeavor sees that his hair had turned white a little bit, that's the first time that Toya ever injured himself with his quirk. Thankfully, a little later in the season, more of the family comes together to give us a true vision of everything that happened. So let's start from the very beginning with Endeavor meeting his wife Rei in the first place. You see, Endeavor was a hero that already had some acclaim, and he went to the Himura family, which was already considered a prestigious family, to find his wife. Now this shows us what's known as a quirk marriage, right? Which is an arranged marriage between two parties where they're pretty much getting together to produce an offspring that has a certain kind of quirk, or a quirk that I guess covers the weaknesses of both of the parents for the sake of their children, so that a parent doesn't pass on bad weaknesses to their children or give them a negative life based on who they chose to get with just for the sake of love. And after that part of the flashback is when we cut to the events that we already saw in My Hero Academia Season 6, Episode 11. Now, after the incident where Toya first burns his arm trying to train with Endeavor, Endeavor starts acting a little different. We see Toya saying, "You got a day off, right? So you gotta do quirk training with me." And Endeavor puts his suit on and starts leaving the house saying, like I keep saying, it's for your own good. And that shows that the relationship between father and son here has very much changed to I'm raising you up to be the next #1 hero and making you the strongest, to hey, we can't even really train anymore, right? And that's a very, very drastic shift in one day, because it's like all the expectations that Endeavor had for Toya were fueling Toya to get better, and then all of a sudden all of those expectations were pulled away. And we find out that Endeavor was actually heading over to a quirk doctor's office to explain to him exactly what's wrong with his son, and his worst fears are confirmed. That again, yes, while Toya's fire is much stronger than usual, he takes after his mother physically, meaning his body is meant to withstand freezing temperatures and not fire. And this is when the doctor even comments on the fact that, hey, this whole thing where you're trying to create a custom child, pretty much, you know what I mean? It's not really, it's kind of taboo in our current quirk-based society. What you're doing here is not exactly right. So I would just watch out about like doing this in the future, because you ended up with a child that has a quirk that it doesn't really fit their body, and now he might have to suffer because of that. I feel like that's kind of the angle that the doctor was working towards. But we see on the news that All Might is just killing it as a hero, right? He saved 62 different towns in a day. He does all this amazing stuff that it just makes Endeavor angry, thinking about the fact that he's failed here, right? He couldn't get what he wanted, and All Might is just getting further and further ahead. Now on the other side of that TV screen, we see actually at home, Toya and his sister Fuyumi are watching the news of everything that All Might's done, and Toya is driven by watching everything that All Might's doing, saying, yeah, so what, I get a little burned, but I can handle this. I want to be strong like this guy. I want to be better than this guy. And we see at this point that Toya is covered with even more bandages, and the hair on his head is like a third white at this point, almost approaching that Shoto area of half red and half white. Fuyumi tells Toya that she doesn't like when when he gets burned either, but he runs off and is like, what would a girl know about it anyway? I'm gonna go and surpass All Might because dad's the one that wants me to be this strong. And the situation in the Endeavor house just keeps devolving. That night, we see a little bit of an argument between Rei and Endeavor, where Rei's like, hey, we can't have any more children, right? Toya now knows the reason that we're having more children is because you're hoping for them to achieve something that he never will. And Endeavor's like, hey, look, I can't do anything about that, right? Like my son, he keeps coming home every day with new burns. He's not giving up on this goal. There's nothing I can say to him. The only thing that could make him give up is having another child that is perfect, that shows him you can't be him. Like you cannot be that perfect. But what I think Endeavor didn't really consider is just like how he'll never give up trying to surpass All Might, especially in this situation, his son is very much the same. So by him going on to create a child like Shoto, he kind of fueled the fire even worse in his son, who knew exactly what was going on. The issue with Endeavor though is the next child that he had ended up being Natsuo, and we know Natsuo also wasn't that perfect fusion that he was looking for, so as far as Endeavor was concerned, it was just another failure. And all the while, Toya is going without being trained as his dad does all this heroic stuff and goes out there being a hero, but he won't teach his son anymore. And at this point, Toya's kind of too far gone to tell him to stop training, so all Endeavor can do, or at least all he can think to do, is to just not acknowledge Toya whenever he does training and hurts himself and is trying to impress him. Eventually we see that Shoto is born, and when Shoto's born, you can see even from his hair that it's a perfect fusion between white and red, and everyone has a different reaction in the Endeavor family, right? Endeavor looks like he's like, oh my god, finally, we're finally here, I hit the lottery, let's go! And on Rei's face, we can see like a defeated face, I think, of relief, like, okay, finally, please just tell me this is the one that this guy needs. Like, let this be it, you know? Like, it's a loving motherly face, but it also looks like a face of not just relief that she finally was able to give birth and that process is all over, but the relief of let this end, you know, let this be the end of this saga. And sadly for her and everyone else involved, it definitely wasn't. On Sekoto Peak, which was an area where Endeavor used to train, it's a very, very cold area, especially in the winter. We see young Toya Todoroki doing his own training drills now, not worrying about being trained by Endeavor, but he set up his own test dummies to use his fire on, and yeah, I mean, he is training and doing well, but he is getting burned at the same time. Toya says, no dad, I can do it too. I can surpass All Might, see? Look how strong my flames are already. Look at me, as tears just stream down his face, knowing that his dad has more or less just replaced him with the other children. But no matter how hard Toya trains, it's not enough, right? He still is putting himself in danger, and he comes home one day after training on Sekoto Peak covered in burns, and Endeavor's like, why won't you stop? Cut it out. You're covered in burns and you still don't understand. You have to look beyond all this stuff with All Might and being a hero. Go play with your family, make friends at school. There's a whole other world besides being a hero, and that's the world that you have to live in. But that's just not enough for Toya, who says all the kids at my school say that they want to be heroes. And with a broken smile on his face and eyes filled with tears, he still tries to make a happy face for Endeavor, saying that I can't understand you wanting me not to be a hero because I've got you for a father. But I suppose another interpretation of these words, which is the interpretation that I'm going to take because I kind of like this one better, honestly, is Toya saying all the kids at school say they want to be heroes, but I don't understand why they would want to be heroes because I've got you as a father, right? You're my dad and you're a hero, and I see how you turned out. I don't know why anyone would ever want to be a hero if that's the case. And I say that because I do think that Toya was angry here because this is where he has his first real tantrum. Rei shouts that they have to calm him down because things are getting a little hectic here, and as the rest of the Todoroki family siblings look on, Toya says that you lit this fire in me and it's not gonna go out. I can't just pretend it's not there. And then Toya starts activating the fire around him, saying, look at me, Endeavor. And he lunges at baby Shoto, who Rei is holding, trying to burn Shoto and take him out. So really, really dark here. All the jealousy is kind of boiled over, and Toya no longer looks at Shoto as a brother, he looks at him as a replacement for all the attention that he wants from Endeavor. So in his eyes, he has to take him out and stop them from going any further so he can finally get the attention that he had when he was an only child. Now, we don't exactly see how this situation gets resolved because it cuts away in the next chapter to a conversation between Rei and Endeavor happening right after the situation, but we do see that Endeavor's fist is balled up and his sleeve is completely burned. But because it's a little vague, you can either assume that Endeavor used his own fire to blast Toya away without actually doing that much damage to him, or he went and grabbed him and took the burn and separated him, but somehow Toya ended up going to his room and not really being a threat anymore. And then we have that discussion again going on between Rei and Endeavor. Endeavor says from now on, we're keeping Shoto away from the other kids, pretty much saying, I can't risk losing my perfect son. It's not that I'm keeping Toya away from all the other kids, I'm keeping Shoto away from them because they could be a threat to him and I can't be here 24/7, so I'm even gonna hire help to help you take care of the only son that really matters to me. And this is where he says, you don't take your eyes off of Toya. I need you to pretty much take care of him. I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure that Shoto ends up okay, even if I have to hire help to do it. Pretty much relegating Rei to take care of the crazy child, which is nuts. But Rei says, all he wants is your attention. He just wants you to raise him, you to look at him, you to like take care of him. And Endeavor says, all I can show anyone is the world of heroes. And this is exactly where I think I like the interpretation of Endeavor that Shoto has a little later in the future, or I guess now in the current day, because Shoto looks at Endeavor as both the hero Endeavor and the father Enji Todoroki, and he has very different thoughts about how those two people have done their jobs. But here it seems like Endeavor has kind of cast away the role as Enji the father, and he's only able to act as Endeavor the hero. So for a person who he doesn't see as ever being able to become a hero, he feels like he has nothing to offer them, which is why he feels like he has nothing to offer Toya in the first place. He's like, how can I possibly be a father to this child when the only thing that I think I'm good for in the world that I can show him, I can't show him. He can't do that. So it's kind of Endeavor looking at himself, looking down on himself and not having the confidence to being a father in the first place and not really thinking that through. It seems like Endeavor really wasn't ready to be a parent, but he was ready to be a master to a fire user, to have them raise up and become stronger than him. You have to have both of those things sort of if you're going to be a proper master, and he definitely didn't have that. But in response to everything that Endeavor has to say, Rei kind of looks at him like just exhausted at this whole situation, saying, aren't you just running away to go play hero? You know what I mean? You have a son here that you have to raise. He's clearly troubled, and you're just hiring help and running away to go be Endeavor when you fail to be Enji. And a vein pops in Endeavor's head, but I believe he walks away from the situation because that's the end of the night that we see before getting a 5-year time skip to when the Todoroki family is now a little older. Here, Fuyumi is 12, Natsuo is 8, and Toya is 13, and they all say that they want to go out and play ball together, so they do all go out and play. And actually, Toya looks pretty normal here. He has like a computer set up, he has toys, he seems like he's calmed down drastically, at least to the point where he can get along closely with his other siblings. And that's where we actually see that one scene that we saw early on in the series, where Shoto is looking down at the rest of his family members playing together next to that old lady, but Endeavor grabs him and is like, hey, we have to go train. Don't even look at them. They live in a different life than you do. We're in the world of heroes. And even from outside the special dojo that Endeavor had built for training his children, you can hear that there's training going on in there. So you just have Toya playing outside of his brother and sister, knowing that in there, Shoto, I guess the holy one, the proper one, is being trained for his real purpose. So the reality that Toya was a failed creation was pretty much just inescapable at this point in his life. It's here that we actually see Toya crying to Natsuo, like Dabi says in episode 11, and we see him talking about various things like, hey, is Endeavor really like what a hero is nowadays? You know, they have all these children to make the perfect quirk user and then don't even pay attention to the ones that aren't the perfect one. Like, that's messed up. And it seems like Natsuo is just tired of hearing about it, right? Where he tells him, hey, you want to like go talk to Fuyumi about this once in a while instead of me? But Toya instantly starts crying and getting really intense about it, saying that the women in the family are good for nothing and the only person who can understand them is Natsuo. The next morning, we see Rei actually confronting Toya before he goes off to that mountain peak to train, saying, you need to go hang out with your friends or your classmates or something. Please don't go up there. To which he responds, I don't need friends. We live in two different worlds. They live in one world and I live in the world of heroes. And that's when I think Rei really thinks to finally ask the question to Toya, like, do you even want to be a hero? Or are you just doing it because of your dad, right? Are you just doing it because of some expectation and you're suffering for it just because of who your dad is? As a mother, she tells him that there are many available paths paths to him in life, and there's countless options beyond who his father is for him to try to be when he's older. But Toya snaps back at her like, what the hell do you know, right? Where'd you get that? Some self-help book? I know the fact that grandma and everyone in the family was poor, so that's why they more or less sold you off to Endeavor. So you didn't even actually get with someone for love, so maybe you're also to blame for why I ended up like this, because if he's not the perfect family and I have to look past him to become whoever I have to become, maybe you should have thought about that before you also created me. More or less saying to his mom that the only reason she wanted him to be born was for money. Still not really giving Endeavor that entire blame, because he looks at it as, well, at least Endeavor was trying to create a hero, you just wanted money for your family. And that's really awful to say to your mom, honestly, and she really has a reaction like that's kind of the most awful thing she's ever heard in her life. And I'm sure Rei honestly cried after that, because that's just, oof. After that argument, Toya makes his way back up to Sekoto Peak, and we get a little bit of narration saying that Toya was always small because he came out of the oven a little early, but at long last, he had finally had a growth spurt at the age of 13. And we actually do see him training once again on Sekoto Peak in that area with even more test dummies than before, and they're all on fire because it seems like Dabi's gathered all his firepower in his stomach and shot it out at all the different targets, kind of being his own version of prominence burn, I'm sure, which is a move that I'm sure he was going for because it's his father's signature move. And this is where we also learn that this is the point where Dabi's fire changed from red to blue. It changed as a result of his growth spurt, which made his fire get even stronger. Toya, being really proud of himself for what he achieved up on Sekoto Peak, goes to Endeavor and he's like, hey, listen, Dad, next time you get a day off, you gotta come up with me to Sekoto Peak to see what I'm able to do. And Endeavor looks at him like, what? And lifts his shirt up and sees an actual big giant burn across Toya's stomach, saying, what's going on here? Why does he have burns in places that I can't see usually? He's definitely been still training this entire time, even though he's not supposed to be, because Endeavor didn't know. But Toya tries to keep it positive, saying, hey, don't get mad. What I can do now is really cool, and I might even be getting better than Shoto or All Might one of these days. Like, you really got to come up to the mountain and see what I'm able to do, because after I'm better than Shoto and All Might, you're gonna have to give me some respect, and then you'll be glad that you created me. And that's where we do see Toya starting to break down even more and more, pulling his hair out and starting to cry in front of his dad, getting really worked up again. Endeavor rushes into the room where Rei is in, and we don't see the entire conflict, but it does seem like he pushed her down to the ground or did something, because he's screaming at her and she looks like she's knocked over, and we see Shoto, who's old enough finally to talk, going, don't bully mommy, don't be mean to her, while Endeavor is shouting and screaming at Rei, saying, damn it, all I asked you to do was watch that boy, and you couldn't even do that. Why didn't you stop him? And broken, Rei just looks up at Endeavor and says, I can't stop him. I can't. Like, I can't stop him. Because like Endeavor, when he has his mind on something, there's just no stopping. He just takes too much after his father. And this is where things in this already sad story start to take an even sadder turn. Because we learn that when Toya goes up on Sekoto Peak waiting for Endeavor to come and see his new move, Endeavor doesn't even go up there to go after him to get him to come home. In fact, Endeavor himself says, looking back on the situation, that he thought he'd only be fueling Toya's fire, but the truth is that he actually just had no idea what to say to him. They both kind of failed as a parent here because neither of them were able to stop him. So as Toya sits there alone on Sekoto Peak crying and crying, what ends up happening is he actually accidentally cries out fire. Fire comes out of his tear ducts, and it's so raging as it catches onto his hair that it starts spreading to his clothes and all over his body. So the fire just gets hotter and hotter, and it starts burning more and more, and this is where Toya realizes he actually doesn't know how to stop the flames. He's only ever learned how to raise the heat. Endeavor never taught him that far. He only ever taught Toya how to turn the heat up. So as Toya is burning in Sekoto Peak, his emotions and his panic only raises the heat level and makes things worse until Toya eventually burns down the entire forest on Sekoto Peak. And like we saw in My Hero Academia Season 6, Episode 11, Endeavor gets there when it's already too late. Things have already gotten too bad, and apparently nothing was left of Toya Todoroki. That is the end of his story, but not actually. Later on in the manga, we actually get an update to this backstory showing what happened to Dabi afterwards, and how it was that he was actually able to survive this incident. In My Hero Academia chapter 350, in the final arc of My Hero Academia actually, we pick up on that exact moment where Toya is completely drenched in fire, burning down to the bone, and he starts running through the fire, running through the mountain saying, "Hot! Hot, no, I don't want to die. I still haven't shown him what I could really do." And he eventually makes his way into a small little pond that I suppose that was there, and he throws himself into it, getting the fire off of his body. Now we see that in the process of him running into this pond, he screams and part of his jaw actually falls off, which is the only part that Endeavor was able to recover later on to actually prove to him that Toya was dead, but he still had his doubts. Now, left to his own devices here in this situation, Toya probably would have died or at least never been the same ever again. It is the kind of situation where he just would have been a burnt corpse, right? He was laying pitch black, all charred up, down to the muscle in this pool of water. But that's when a very, very interesting thing actually ended up happening. A man walked through the fire of the forest, completely untouched by the fire, unburdened by it. His clothes weren't even burned at all. And he found Toya before Endeavor was able to find him. And this man, in an all-black suit and a top hat, was actually All for One. Everything cuts to black, and then mysteriously, Toya wakes up later in a strange room. It looks like he woke up in a daycare that's been renovated into being a hospital room, or at least reused as a hospital room, as he lays in a kitten paw bed with all sorts of origami and signs around him that say, "Hey, get well soon, Mr. Sleepyhead," but he has an IV in his arm. Confused at how he's still alive, Toya goes out and starts questioning some of the other people that are there who are also children who seem to be younger or around his age, and he says, "What is this place?" But he realizes immediately that the voice that came out of his mouth is not the voice that he remembered having when he was initially burned. And that's because it's been 3 whole years since the Sekoto Peak incident, and Toya's actually been in a coma the entire time, being healed by some mysterious benefactor here as a result of All for One's actions. Now, Toya does try to leave this place saying, "I have to go back home and I gotta get back to my family," but a mysterious, happy sunflower guard tells him, "Hey, you can't go anywhere. You live here now with everyone else. These are your family members, and you're gonna warm up to them pretty quickly because you have no other choice." But Toya's like, "No, that's not gonna work for me, okay? I gotta get home to my dad. He was too busy to come and see me, but of course he's worried sick about me. They're probably looking for me. I have to go apologize, and after all this, I just want to be around my dad. I just want my dad to look at me again." And that's when All for One appears on a monitor saying, "I'm afraid that won't be possible anymore." And this is where we get a full rundown of Toya's injuries and actually learn how he survived, right? Because in conjunction with the Quirk doctor, it seems like All for One had him work on Toya's body and give him surgery to cover his body, or at least the places that were burned very badly, with regenerative tissue. And it's taken 3 years for Toya to finally heal enough for him to wake up and look sort of normal, even though his chin and various places on his body have been completely replaced with other flesh. All for One says, "You won't be able to use your power like before. You sustained grave damage in several organs. Your somatic nervous system is impaired, causing sensations like pain to become duller. And in general, your body has become weaker, meaning you're never going to go back to the person that you were before." Now, before how you were, we would have even loved to have you join our team, with Toya not really knowing that All for One is talking about the villains there. But now how you are, you're kind of just a failure. But if you stay here, we might be able to return your firepower to how it was before, right? You're a failure, but I can fix you. Kind of trying that game of manipulation that we know All for One is really good at. And that same kind of tactic was successful on Tenko, but here it really doesn't work on Toya. And in fact, going that route might have been the worst possible way to go with Toya, because Toya just doesn't go for it. He actually completely disobeys All for One, to his complete shock and surprise, saying, "I have no intention of learning from anyone else but Endeavor." And this is where Toya completely snaps, burning down the entire building that he was in an attempt to escape and ultimately getting away. Now, you would think that's kind of a loose end right there, right? Like, why would they let him get away in that situation? But the doctor explains that Dabi wasn't supposed to last even a month after he left that facility. It's actually a mystery to them how Dabi survived, period. And that's still a big mystery to this day, even to the current chapter of My Hero Academia, because we still have no idea how Dabi survived after leaving that facility, considering even the doctor who did the surgery on him is saying he shouldn't have survived a month out there. Given the state that he was in, he still needed more care, right? Just because he had woken up at that point didn't mean that he was ready to start walking around and leaving. He needed more of our care, but somehow he survived anyway. They were so sure actually that Toya wasn't going to make it that the doctor and All for One were genuinely surprised when Giron brought Toya to the League of Villains, because they thought that he would have been long dead. And even though we don't know the entire situation of what happened to Toya after running away from the facility, we do know one thing. We do know that he actually did go back home. He tried to go back to Endeavor and the rest of the family, but upon arriving to the house, the first thing that he was met with was his own memorial that was in the house, which is the memorial that we saw in My Hero Academia Season 5. But even though Toya had made it back to the house without anyone noticing, he realized that nothing had really changed. If anything, things had only gotten worse with the way that he saw Endeavor was still training Shoto. Endeavor still, after seeing how everything affected his family, haven't given up on that dream and was still acting exactly the same, if even worse. And Toya felt like at that point, his family had completely moved on from him, and that he'd rather not go back home and not stay with Endeavor and them if it meant living in that hell. And it's at this moment, facing everything that was going on with the family, that Toya bowed his head at his own memorial within the house and said a prayer to himself, saying goodbye to Toya and that Toya had died and that Dabi was born. And those are the events of the day where Toya Todoroki ceased to exist and Dabi was born. Now, we don't know how Dabi managed to survive or how he manages to survive a lot of the burns that he actually gets in this series, but it's driven a lot of people to have various theories. And even on this channel, if you're looking for something to watch next, you can go and watch my Dabi Phoenix Theory, though do consider that that does contain some spoilers for the My Hero Academia manga as well, just like this video does. But in that video, we go over the theory that Dabi might actually have some secret aspect to his quirk that lets him survive when he does get very, very badly burned, and that might be the reason that he survived after leaving the doctor's place, but also it sheds some light on how he's surviving some current events in the story, because yeah, he's gotten pretty burned as the story has reached its final arc more than ever before. It kind of seems like it makes no sense for him to be holding on. So definitely check that video out, and hope you guys enjoyed this video. I love you so much. It's Pineapple. I appreciate you guys for taking some time out of the day to check me out, and please give this video a like, give my channel a subscription. We got more My Hero content coming on the way. The season is only halfway over, so are you excited to learn more about Dabi in the next couple episodes? Let me know in the comment section below, and let me know what you want to see next. Peace.